For sure, the people had deviated far away. And then Allah is saying here that He lets their hearts deviate even more. It's what they want. The understanding here is that if people don't want to worship God on His terms, and they want to misguide themselves, He's ready to let them go. As far off as they want to go, go. Because He doesn't need us. The next verse after that, and when Jesus, the son of Mary, he said to Maryam, he said, O children of Israel, he's talking to the children of the same line. This is Beni Israel, the same that Musa was talking to himself. He said, O children of Israel, indeed I'm the messenger of Allah to you. The same words, really, that we find coming from Him. The same words that Moses said to his people. And Jesus said, He's replying the same to His people. Confirming what came before me of the Torah, the law, and bringing the gospel, or here it's translated as good news, Injil is what we call it in Arabic, of a messenger to come after me, who is Ahmed, whose name is Ahmed, which is one of the names of the Prophet of Islam. Ahmed, Mahmoud, Mustafa, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he continues and he said, his name will be Ahmed, but when he came to them with clear evidence, they said, this is obvious magic. Allah continues in this same surah, verse number 7. And who is more unjust than the one who invents about Allah untruth while he is being invited to Islam? And Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. Our topic tonight is based really on those three prophets that I just mentioned to you in that surah. Musa, Moses, Jesus, peace be upon him, and Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. Three different prophets, but one message. What is the message which we find? I want to use the Bible because it's not fair for me to tell a Jewish person about his religion and refer to the Quran, because he will say, well, that's not my religion. So we'll look and see if he has it in his book. And does he have the books of Moses? Does he have the Torah? And if he does, then let's look and see what does it say. We'll look in the chapter 5 of the book of Deuteronomy, and then we'll compare it to chapter 20 in the book of Exodus, and we'll observe that we're finding almost literally the same words. The translation in English that says that God is speaking now to Moses, and He's telling Moses what to tell the people. This is God speaking in the first person about Himself, not Moses speaking about himself. Saying, I'm the Lord your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt and the house of bondage. You know no other God beside me. Besides me, there's no other God. That's the first commandment. And you can find it easily in both of these two separate books that are just mentioned. But if you thought that was going to be exclusive only to the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, you'll find that that's not exactly so. In fact, throughout the Old Testament, you will find this statement coming again and again and again. In chapter 6 of Deuteronomy, you find this statement that says, "Know, O Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord." And you have to worship him with all your might, and all your mind, and all your strength. And in some translations, all your soul. We will also find in the Old Testament, in the book of Hosea, chapter 16, verse 4. Again, it will start similar, that their prophet Hosea is speaking about what God told him, so he's quoting it. When in Arabic you would say that this is Hadith Qudsi. This is where God is being quoted. And he says, "I'm the Lord your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Besides me, there's no other God. Besides me, there's no other Savior." So again, we find confirmation. Now, that pretty much sums up a pretty strong argument that the Old Testament is talking about God is one. You have to worship him, love him, serve him on his terms. And that there's no Savior but him. No partners, no gods beside God. If we wanted to do a little bit of study on the subject, we'd find that the second commandment deals with the subject of images, idols, statues, pictures, anything that can represent God is not going to be acceptable. Of anything in the sky above, walking on the earth, or swimming in the sea beneath. We'd also find in another verse that you can't take God's name or names in vain. We have that in Islam. We have 99 names of Allah. Certainly we have to give full respect to all of Allah's names. And we could continue and find that out of the 10 commandments, 40%, the first 4, are all dealing with the subject of worship, ibadah. We would find that there was constant reference to one God who is the only one to be worshipped. This is what we find throughout the Old Testament. Now, you have to understand that the children of Israel, even though they deviated, even though they got far away in many cases, God was still merciful to them. And he kept giving them blessings. He kept giving them nice things, barakah, and saving them from total disaster. Oh, he let them go into servitude to the Egyptians, no doubt about it. He let them be taken over by the Babylonians, and they were taken out of Jerusalem, off into what is now Iraq. But nowhere really do we find that he totally destroyed them. In fact, somehow they always managed to come back together again. And this was a big mercy from Allah. And then finally, about 2,000 years ago, there was a prophecy that they were really looking for, because they were really fed up of the oppression of the Romans on them. This was the time of Bar Kokhba. This is also the time when they were suffering greatly and couldn't really declare a lot of things of their own law, because the Roman law was dominating them. So many of them, they left from the mainstream society and went out into the deserts. And they were living out there in little groups. But today we call them by names that may or may not have what they call themselves: the Essenes, the Essenes, the Nazarenes, and more names. But they lived out in remote areas, and they were pretty much not like monks in a way, that they worshipped a lot and ate little, prayed a lot, and they wrote a lot. Some of the writings survive, and we know them today. They found them in the Wadi Qumran, which is nicknamed the Dead Sea Scrolls. But we know they really did care a lot about their religion. They tried to take care of it. A little late in the game, but they tried. They were looking for a Savior.